I always focus on who is here, not who is not here. My name is Scheril Powell. I'm a cannabis as well as an agricultural attorney. I'm very passionate about this industry and this space. I work with farmers all over the country, as well as in the Caribbean, to help them get licensed so that they can take part in the process. There are two main facets to what I do for working with minorities for medical marijuana, working with green roads and things like that. And it has to do with, one, diversifying the industry and making sure that all people are represented, including people of color, including people with disabilities, making sure veterans are also included, and making sure that there's gender equality within the industry. So that's one of my passion points, and the other part has to do with pipelining, so making sure there's opportunity for the younger generation to get involved, and that is shown through my work with the universities. So I'm in-house counsel for Green Roads of Florida, LLC. It is a CBD company, one of the largest in the country. It is the #1 rated CBD oil by High Times, #1 rated by CBDoil.com, and they're doing good work working with the American Cancer Society, Epilepsy Foundation, Joe DiMaggio's Children's Hospital, and a number of organizations. I am starting a CBD trial in England coming up. Supposed to start this month, but I have to actually go to the Caribbean to work on legalization in a particular country. So I'm going to probably postpone it till August, actually. But this program, I'm really glad that Dr. Newton mentioned ketamine, which is also known as Special K, because that's the target population for my study. People who are taking ketamine to get over other highly addictive drugs. But what's happening with this population is they're getting increased pain because the ketamine doesn't flow through their system, and it's lining their bladders, so that you have like 20-year-olds, 23-year-olds who are incontinent because they have the ketamine's lining their bladders, and it's shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and causing them more pain. They're treating that pain with ketamine. So we're going to have 50 participants working with the University of Bath. So those are the types of projects that I look for. I'm not too much of a political person, but I do believe in public policy and getting involved with public policy, writing public policy. I don't think this issue is a Democratic issue or a Republican issue. There's good and bad actors on both sides. I don't support one-trick ponies who are just out here saying, yeah, I believe in cannabis legalization. Show me your voting records when it comes to decriminalization. Yeah. Show me your voting records when it comes to, children policy with regards to children and access to housing. Yeah. I think that is more telling than any candidate showing up, popping up on the scene and saying, I'm pro-cannabis. Because if you look at, let's look at the gubernatorial candidates, all of them except for Adam Putnam at this point are saying that they're pro-cannabis, every single last one. But what I look at is the other issues that are important to our community. How are you treating those types of issues? So I wanted to briefly talk, this is what is it called? Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Awareness Month. June is a really important month for a number of communities, one being the veterans community, two being the African American community, especially due to urban trauma and issues related to racial issues. So minorities for medical marijuana, we're putting a spotlight on those types of issues, and we're speaking about post-traumatic stress disorder. My talk that I was going to give, and I have the slides, but I don't want to rush it, and I want to save it for next time, has to do with post-traumatic stress disorder when it comes to caregivers. And in this space, I think the most underrated individuals are the caregivers. We have moms who, they've been taking their children to the hospital several times a week since they had a newborn, and they know that this is what they're going to be doing until the day of their death, and then hopefully they'll be able to put some solution in place for their children after they're gone. That's kind of the mindset for the patient's parent. You have people who, they didn't plan for their spouse to have a disability, and then all of a sudden they're put in a position where they have to do a lot of functions for their spouse, but then because their spouse is disabled, they also have to earn an income for the household. So, we really need to have a tremendous amount of compassion for that community. I'm finding in my interaction with patients and caregivers, the caregivers aren't taking care of themselves. They're not making doctor's appointments for themselves. They're making doctor's appointments for the patient, and they're not making doctor's appointments for themselves. They're not sharing their, where they are mentally with a trusted individual, whether it's a friend, whether it's a therapist. They're not getting that opportunity to unload, to debrief, and that's causing residual mental health issues. I can't stress it enough how important it is for caregivers to take care of themselves, and I can't stress enough how important it is for us to have compassion for caregivers, give them the opportunity to take a break, build those relationships so they do trust you, because a lot of caregivers won't let anyone watch the patient because, one, they don't want to miss any of the good moments where maybe it's the first smile or maybe it's the first movement of the hand. They don't want to miss those big moments, but they also don't want to miss something catastrophic where they feel like they wouldn't be able to forgive themselves. So it's really important that we check on the strong ones, make sure we are, as we're advocates in the industry, we're taking that to more of a household granular, from a household granular perspective, and actually doing things to help those individual patient families, even if it's just having a conversation, even if it's giving them flowers or some type of recognition, even if it's, you found a really good physician and you'd like to recommend that, even if you found really good research and you want to recommend that, make sure that you're celebrating their successes. So, I've been doing a lecture series, so this is probably, this is lesson 3. Where I talk about the caregiver aspect, and I promise you I will deliver it again. But as I'm going through this lecture series, there's like 3 key tenets that I have taken from what I've observed of the Rastafarian community. I'm not a Rasta, I'm a Christian. However, I have close connections with the Rastafarian community, specifically with my work that I do in Jamaica. With that said, the first piece is conquering. So being that conquering lion, encouraging those caregivers to be strong and making sure that they're celebrating the small successes as they conquer. The next key tenet has to do with collaboration. So collaborating with like-minded individuals. So be that person that they can trust, that they can lean on, and encourage them to talk and share with others in their situation and professionals that can help. And then finally, it's about cooperating, and that's the last tenet that I speak of in every single part of my lecture series. And the cooperating piece has to do with their frustration with agencies and services that are available for a patient. It can be so frustrating. We see it with the veteran community and their interactions with the VA. So we want to make sure that we assist our caregivers as they're trying to find services. We cooperate with them as they try to find services for their patient, and we make sure that they don't give up. I'm going to end with my five P's of advocacy as far as from a stakeholder perspective. So the first P has to do with politicians. Get involved with the political process. It's very important. Some people engage at the registration to vote level. Some people engage at actually voting and using their constitutional right. Some people go to Tallahassee, some people go all the way to DC, but you have to do some type of contribution even if it's locally. So that's the first P. The second P has to do with physicians. I heard there were some questions earlier, dialogue about the education gap. And I think at every level it's peer-to-peer coaching right now. The physicians, where they're getting most of their education is peer-to-peer coaching. Lawyers, such as myself, where we're getting most of our education is peer-to-peer coaching, and patients, where they're getting their information, is down to peer-to-peer coaching. I think the physicians are most important in that process, and they actually happen to be the third P. So we have politicians, then we have physicians, and the physicians are important because they're the gatekeepers of the process. In a medical state, physicians are the gatekeepers of the process. So we have the physicians as another P. We have pharmacists. So, if we're in a state, in a posture where we do reschedule and not deschedule, the pharmacists are going to be very, very important. And I think we all need to be prepared for that and start educating them and making sure they are aware of the benefits that come from cannabis. The fourth P would be the patient community. And making sure that they're engaged, that we're not just speaking at patients, that we're listening as well, and that we make sure no one's lost out of the process. When you look at our chronic conditions, there are certain conditions that are not missing. Dr. Newton spoke about migraines. There's a huge sickle cell. Sickle cell is a huge chronic issue in the African American community. Just pain by itself. There are a lot of things that we've missed. We need to make sure the legislature captures that information. We need to listen to these patients. And finally, the last P is professors. And when I say professors and universities. So that academia piece of the process is critical to us moving forward. That's where we get the research. So we need to make sure they get rid of the stigma, this fear with regards to doing cannabis research. We have grassroots experts. We need to take that right into the academic space and make sure that the universities are doing what we need to do, and they're preparing students to be the next cannabis recommending physicians, the next cannabis attorneys, the next scientists and testing lab owners, and that's the important piece of it. So again, the 5 Ps, those are the stakeholders that we as advocates need to focus in on: our politicians, our physicians, our pharmacists, our patients, as well as our professors and academics.